Welcome back to another Kray video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any videos. And for people really into the Krays, join our private Facebook group, Krays Crime Lords of London, where you will find stuff probably unavailable anywhere else. We're an established group with a large membership, and best of all, we're friendly. The link is in the YouTube description section.
Well, now on for a cutting-edge special asks, has Reggie Kray finally served his time? The programme contains strong language.
Anyway, welcome to the programme tonight. Now, listen, for the first hour this evening, we'll do something different. Normally, we have a free-for-all. Tonight, we're going to do, is Reg Kray staying in prison for the rest of his life or not? Or put it another way, Reggie will be sitting there listening in the moment, so, all right, Reggie? On March the 5th, 1969, identical twins Reggie and Ronnie Kray were sent to prison for a minimum of 30 years. The twins will always be remembered as Britain's most notorious gangsters. During the 60s, they built a criminal empire of fraud, gambling, protection, and extortion. They punched and slashed their way to the top of the criminal pile. But their violence eventually ended in murder. Ronnie Kray shot and killed a villain called George Cornell. Reggie Kray stabbed to death Jack the Hat McVitie. Ronnie died 5 years ago in Broadmoor Mental Hospital for the criminally insane. But Reg is still in prison after 31 years. Should we let him out? Why are we keeping him in prison? For anybody who was around when Ronnie died and when his funeral was being carried out, you would have thought it was a member of the royal family who was getting buried. Hundreds of thousands of people turned out on the streets. It was an enormous affair. Why? What is the magic of the Krays? Why are the Krays still a legend? I'm just interested to know what you think. Are you absolutely beside yourself at the idea of this guy being let out of prison? Roberta Kray, Reggie's wife, will be in the studio with me in a few minutes' time. Roberta Kray is with me. She is his wife. What do you think about it? Is it wrong that we're sitting here talking about trying to get a man who, after all, was convicted of murder out of prison? You must have read some of the stories about the Krays. What does he say about his gang, he and his brother, the way they ran the East End of London? What does he actually say to you about it?
Well, we've talked about those times. It's a mixture of emotions. He has some regrets, but you can't regret everything. You can't look back over your whole life.
To be able to survive and be as lucid as he is for over 31 years, how does anybody do that? And do we actually learn anything from this, do you think? Let's go to the calls.
There is something about when you're young and you watch all these gangster films. Young boys love a gangster. But the Krays actually got far beyond control. There's all this folklore. They used to look after their own people, old ladies that used to live in the manor and things like that. But there was loads of local shopkeepers that had to pay protection money. They were absolute bullies.
But you're a black cab driver. Oh, what's your name? Simon, and you London black cabbie?
Reggie Kray's been in prison long enough. I think he actually did a job that the police force should have done. I think we have to look at the...
I think that's the most stupid thing. I've heard some stupid things, Tony, and that is the most stupid thing. Thank you for your call. Wilfred.
A very good evening, James. I think he should stay in. Other gangland killers ought to be serving the same amount of time. It's an absolute disgrace. It's unbelievable.
I'm just really astounded that somebody who seems to be an intelligent middle-class, educated woman could be so in love with somebody who's clearly so much of an evil, callous bastard.
Roberta?
Oh, it's a very touching description of Reg. I think what you're saying is that people have no capacity for change, have no potential for change. I know his reputation is part of him, but that's not what attracted me to him. When I went to see him, that wasn't why I went.
You know, the glamour and the romance of the myth that still surrounds him.
There's nothing glamorous about a man being in prison.
He'll be listening to you, I know, right now. So would you like to finish off by saying anything to him this evening? Or are you going to go and see him tomorrow? Or?
Well, I would actually like to say what I meant to say right at the beginning, which was to pass on his very best regards to you and to all your listeners tonight. And to say a very personal good night and I love you to my husband. Good night, Reg.
Thank you very much indeed for coming this evening. 08700 40 50 60 is the number to call if you would like to get on the air.
I first met Reg in Maidstone Prison in 1995. He was working on a video about his brother Ron. He needed someone to help him with the PR press releases. I had worked in media research for 10, 12 years, and this friend of mine suggested that I might be able to do it, and so I went along to meet him, and it grew from there. We became friends ourselves. We talked on the telephone, exchanged letters. I began to visit him more, and it was about 2 years after that he asked me to marry him. And I said yes, and we married in the chapel at Maidstone on July the 14th, 1997. We weren't actually allowed to have our own photographer at the wedding. They insisted on using a prison photographer. I have one copy of these pictures, and I'm not permitted to run off a copy, you know, for my parents, for my friends, for anyone else who was there at the wedding. I can't even show you these photographs. It isn't anything that happens to anyone else. It isn't a prison law. Anyone else who gets married in prison can take their own camera and take as many pictures as they like. But because it's Reg, he's not allowed to do that. Hello. Hello, how are you doing? Did you? Good. Did you go to the gym? Yeah? Yeah? You're building up those muscles? Right. Reg has talked to me about everything that I've ever asked him about. I've missed talking to you this morning. He has talked about the killing of Jack McVitie. I have to accept who he was in order to accept who he is now. Reg has become something of a legend purely down to the fact that he has spent so much time in prison. The longer you actually perpetuate a myth or a legend, the stronger it gets.
This was the final day after a long, long trial, one of the longest murder trials in criminal history. I can remember, as we're entering the Old Bailey, there were little old ladies banging on the side of the van. Queues were right the way round the block. It was almost like we were celebrities, and they were fattening us up for the tribal gathering. You know, we were the main course, as it were. I was actually charged with murder. I was given a life sentence, along with the Kray brothers. Although I had not taken any physical part, I spent 15 years in prison. I remember we went into the dock, one by one. It was Ronnie up first. And he come down, And I guess really set the tone on the day. What do you get, Ron? 30 years. Well, I've just got to put my cruise to the Bahamas off for a short time. But never mind, you know, we'll have a wonderful time when it finally arrives. With a smile on his face. Like, you know, it was just another day. It was just another event. I'm going to light another player. And then Reggie went up. And he went up like a fighter. Like a boxer entering the ring, you know. A bit of swagger and stuff like that. And he came down. How'd you get on, Reg? Life recommended 30. Come in. And I was sitting in the cell. We were literally all in the same cell together. He said, don't worry. And I remember him putting his hands on my neck and, you know, working the tensions out. And then, almost like I was going into a fight, called up, and up I went, and stood in front of Judge Milford Stevenson, and he said, life with a recommended 15. I remember looking up at the dock, at the public gallery, and my father was up there with old Charlie Kray. And I could not show my father that I was beaten. I couldn't break down. And I just waved up at him and said, see you later, Dad. I'd been where Reggie Kray's been. 15 years was awesome. I could not imagine another 15 year on top of that. To take into account 30 years. When we went away, a Big Mac was a coat you wore. A chip was something you put in your mouth. Now, everywhere we look, there are chips which control our lives. He must think about death an awful lot at 65, although he keeps himself fit and he's fighting it like he's fought time. But how long can you fight it for, you know? In that room that night, madness reigned for such a short moment. But that madness for him has not gone away. He must have died a million times in there. I did, I know. Sometimes I felt it would have been better if they'd have hanged us. A lot of people died that night. I don't think just Jack died.
Can you all hear me at the back?
Yep.
Yes. Right. Now, thanks first of all for all coming on this tour. This tour is terrific. You're going to hear about the Krays. As far as I'm concerned, lovely people.
We're after you, Frank.
Oh, that's all right. It's only my usual escort. Oh, it's all right. Don't let them pass. Let's have a good chase. We're going to go to the terminals. That's where I was shot. In the head. Terrific shot.
This is Evering Road.
Oh, this is Evering Road, where Jack the Hat was killed. Jack the Hat was a smashing fella, but his wife pissed off and left him with his little baby, little son, and he couldn't handle it. And when he come out, he got very heavy into drugs, booze, was very abusive, was a horrible man, made insulting comments about Reggie and Ronnie for no reason at all, and even their mum, and things like that, things that none of you would stand for. Any self-respecting man wouldn't stand for. And Reggie quite rightly killed him. I would have. Anyone would have. Who had any moral fibre in them, you know, to be insulted like that for no reason at all. And that's why Jack the Hat got murdered. And quite rightly and all, in my opinion. Well, from here, we'll be going to other places. And at the end, you'll all be given a gun.
There's a general invitation to a party. And I mean, this isn't said on the stairs, something else like that, get Jack, we've got to get him round here and give him a slap or anything else like that. It weren't a message from Reggie Kray that he came to me and said, Chris, we want Jack to have a little bit of a sort out.
you know, take him away onto Wanstead's flats and put one in the back of his head, which you would think, if they wanted to kill the man, that was the way it would be done. In a sensible way, he's done away with, he's taken away and disposed of. It was nothing like that whatsoever.
It was a crude trap for an old villain like McVitie. Hart, Tony Barry, the Lambrianos could all have warned him. Even when they failed to, he should have smelled something a little odd about this sudden invitation, but he was probably too drunk. Barry brought the gun and drove off looking scared before becoming even more involved. Young Ronnie Hart returned. Ronnie posted him as a lookout in an upstairs window facing the street. Just before midnight, Hart saw a beaten-up Ford Zodiac draw up. 5 men got out. The Lambrianos, 2 brothers by the name of Mills, and finally a man in a hat, McVitie. Hart gave the alarm. McVitie burst in, ready for a party. "Where's all the birds? All the booze?" he shouted. Ronnie Kray was waiting for him, watching from the sofa. Reggie was behind the door.
"Where's the birds and the booze?" That's the first thing he said, and then he saw Ronnie. And Ronnie just looked up, and he went, "Hello, Ron." And Ronnie just walked over and hit him underneath the eye with a glass. "Hey, well, I've had a fucking enough of you, now fuck off." And walked back to the television, and all of a sudden Jack was going, "What have I done? What have I done?"
A fight develops. No, an argument develops. Then it turns into a fight. A gun is pulled out, starts clicking away, it doesn't work.
And there's a bit of confusion. Now I'm convinced Ed Jack had walked out of the room after Ronnie hit him with a glass. That would have been the end of it. But he didn't.
Outside, big Chrissy Lambriano, who had always wanted to be a gangster, suddenly realized what he had done and was sitting, weeping, on the stairs. McVitie must have thought he still...
Whatever was going down, I wanted no part of it. So I walk outside and Connie Whitehead says to me, "What's the matter, Chris? I'm half cut as well. Connie, I didn't come down here for this."
If they'd have wanted to kill Jack the Hat, they could have killed him 20 times over, you know. But when a fight happens, it just sort of gets out of hand. And as you say, you go to win. You know, I don't think they said, "Oh, we'll get Jack the Hat down there because we're going to kill him." Because there was no plans to bury him or do anything or whatever, you know. I don't think it was premeditated. They said to send the Lambrianos, soppy nuts Lambriano, to go and get him, you know. It wasn't, I don't think there was any sort of plan to murder anybody. It's beat fuck out of him, yeah, you know. But then all of a sudden, like, things go over the top.
Reggie thrust the knife into his face below the eye. The butchering followed as McVitie sank to his knees. Reggie stabbed his stomach and his chest and finished by impaling him through the throat onto the floor. Reggie claims it was hard.
They said to me, "Get rid of that. Throw it under the fucking train." And they'd gone then. That was the end of it. There we are, left with this, with Jack on the floor there.
There's Jack the Hat laying in the middle of the floor. I'm looking at him. I can't believe he's dead. This thing is snowballing. Flat we're in is borrowed from a woman called Blonde Carol for this party. She could come back at any time, find a body in her house. We're not playing Cluedo here. This is real life. I go and get a bucket, plastic bucket, and a shovel, and there's all kind of livery stuff, congealed blood. Took it upstairs, go in the toilet, swill it away. Please God, don't let the children wake up, because if they come out they're going to find a body on the landing. Well, we got the body out and we try to put it in the boot, as you see in these films, and that didn't work, so we put the body on the back seat. Tony then gets in it, he drives away, we're following him. We go on to the Rotherhire Tunnel. We go through it, but we lose Tony. The lights went against us. We didn't want to attract any attention by racing through. We get to the other side and we don't know where Tony is, so we're going round in circles looking for him. We finally see him standing on a corner. We pull in, pick him up. What have you done with it, Tone?
As you come out of the tunnel, I done all right, and there was a church there. And there'd been a wedding. Now all I want to do is get rid of it. That, as far as I was concerned, you can't drive about with that, obviously. So it was just parked over by this church. I got out of the car and left it. I was picked up and we drove away. Here I am, gone out for a nice drinking, in wind-up involving the murder and disposing of someone's body. People say to me, I've never done that, I couldn't have done that. But we're as guilty as anyone.
Quite frankly, I think they let us down. You know, if there's an honesty and a nobility, and I use that word in such as there's honour amongst thieves, you understand, then, you know, as the captains of the ship, they should have, when it was beyond a shadow of a doubt that there was no way that they could save themselves, was to try and save us.
Well, I think one knew it was going to come. There was no other sentence, I suppose, possible at the time. They've been typecast now as criminal celebrities, as celebrity villains, and the picture people have of them is really the picture that came over in that film of them called The Krays. And also, you know, all the sort of gangster reminiscences which have come out of them, which really carry one's knowledge of them no further. Of course they were gangsters, they committed murder and all the rest of it, but behind it all I think there was the most terrible, sad story, which is of these two identical twins, and one of them was abnormal. He'd been damaged mentally as a child by getting, as far as I can make out, a combination of measles and diphtheria together. Ronnie wasn't normal. Reg was.
There's lots of people walking around in the East End of London that's been hit on the chin by Reggie. But I wouldn't say that about Ronnie. It'd be a different kettle of fish with Ronnie, because Ronnie wouldn't be happy with just hitting you on the chin. He'd look for you until he found you and he would hurt you. Simple as that. You would fear Ronnie. There's no two ways about it. If Reggie sent for you and wanted to see you in Valence Road, you'd go round and see him, you'd have a cup of tea with him and you'd walk out. If Ronnie sent for you, you'd take 6 pairs of pants with you. That's the difference between the two of them.
He was feared, and anybody that said they wasn't frightened of him is telling lies. You know, I mean, I've heard loads of rubbish in the papers and seen all the rest of it, and I tell you what, if the man was alive today, they would be shitting themselves, you know, in case he did ever get out. I mean, let's put it this way. I wasn't frightened of him because I knew how to handle him. But if he had the hump with me, I'd keep well away until Reggie sorted it out.
Reg, all his life, had this thing that he had to look after this sick, unstable, identical twin brother, and he did look after him. The only trouble was the unstable, mentally sick twin was the dominant. If Ronnie hadn't been quite so balmy and hadn't killed George Cornell because he was supposed to have called him the fat poof, they'd be stone-rich geezers. They were in most of the frauds in the East End, a lot of protection, a lot of rackets. They really, really didn't need to kill people. But once that killing had happened, then that increased their terror ratio enormously, you see, particularly with Ronnie. Francis Bacon, incidentally, who also knew him, said he had the most frightening face he'd ever seen, which I think from Francis Bacon is quite something. He was a paranoid schizophrenic, and he was mad. But he was fascinated by this whole illusory world of gangsterdom. For Ronnie, I think the barriers between real crime and film crime were very blurred, and I think he often stepped over it.
I know what fear is. I had nightmares over what Ronnie Kray done to me. And I'm bloody glad he's dead and fuck him, you know? Walked up the stairs in their gambling club. And as I got halfway up, I see all these geezers standing this side and that side. And I thought, it's on me. Come in then, with his sloppy voice. Come in then, nothing wrong. I said, all right, well, yeah, sit down. He set me in the armchair. As he's turned, I see this big range cooker. I thought he was just trying to frighten me. When he started burning me, my suit and my hair, and I thought the man's fucking crazy, you know? How can the same man do that to anybody, like, you know? But he never finished there. He said, I'm going to burn your fucking eyes out. I thought, I'm dead. Anyway, someone out the back said, no, Ron, not that. And all of a sudden he went, just like that. He stopped. He went, okay, you can go now. I've been in pubs in the East End, and the Krays would come in, and the pub had empty. People were so afraid of them. They was cutting and carving people up. You got idiots out here. Oh, they couldn't have been so bad. They want to realise all the life them Kray twins are bloody wrecked.
By the end, they were in a sort of mad gangster movie, you know, Stanley Kubrick plus. I was with them the night before they were arrested by chance. You know, I was in a pub with them in the East End, and Reg was in a state. He knew that they were going to be arrested very soon. He was drinking a hell of a lot at the time. He was in a state, and he did suddenly say to me, "I want to get away. I want to get out of this." And I kid you not, I said, one place you really could go to is East Timor. There was no extradition treaty, and it would have been very interesting for him, and it was way away. And he seemed very taken with the idea of East Timor at the time. But then he said, oh, but I couldn't do it. He said, I couldn't leave Ron.
When they went away, as you know, like Ron got certified and everything like that, they still used to write to me. Ron done the painting for me, and his mother gave it to me from him. And every time I look at it, I get upset. There it is, where he signed it on the back, Ron Kray, and he calls it Swans on the Lake. Well,
if he'd have given it to me, if I'd have been on a visit and he'd give it to me, I'd have told him to keep it. I didn't want it. It's a peculiar one. Have a look. Is this in colour? It upsets me to see. Isn't it you? It's a human being done this, a man, not a child. I would think that shows you the state of a person's mind myself. It's not a nice thing, it's a horrible thing, isn't it, really? To me, it's a bit pathetic. We did get from Reg at one time, he made this for my wife, for instance, in prison while he was away, which is this musical box. Plays music, that's about 30 years old. Yeah, play music. I'd have a job making that, you know, but I wouldn't have a job making that. I could do that with my eyes shut. I couldn't do that with my eyes shut. This brain is awake, isn't it? This brain is gone. That's the way I see the two things, and that's the difference between Reggie and Ronnie. I think Reggie's carrying the old can of everything now. There's only one left to take your revenge. I think it's most unfair. It's all centred on Reggie now. I think he's carrying a can for the legend.
Wanted to do Ronnie Kray. In fact, he would have been the first one. I had an opportunity to have done his death mask, which I didn't follow up at the time, and it was only afterwards when I saw how big the response was to his funerals, the biggest since Churchill's, that I thought, hello, there's something going on here. I think I better cast all the other villains before they pop off. Obviously he's passed away now, so I'd love to do Reggie Kray, because if you're talking about gangsters or criminals as icons, the first to represent and fulfill that title were the Kray twins. People that have been vilified by the media are now being feted on the celebrity circuit. Freddie Foreman, I used to work with the Krays. Obviously my father, I've done him, the chief planner of the Great Train Robbery. Mad Frankie Fraser, sort of like a gangland legend, 40 years in prison. He was sort of like torture in chief of the Richardsons. And lastly, Dave Courtney, who's the sort of inspiration for the character that Vinnie Jones played in Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels.
Terrific pictures of you, they really are.
I'll use the biro. I can't even do joined up, mate. He was responsible for the security for Ronnie Kray's funeral, and he is what I'd describe as sort of the first post-modern gangster. He's almost a work of art.
When Ron died, it was left almost automatically to me to do the security for the funeral, and I was more than happy to. In fact, I took it as an honour. For me, it's one of the proudest moments of my life. I never for 1 second thought I'd be able to even do his shoes up. I suppose every footballer aspires to be like Beckham, or every boxer wants to be Tyson, so every villain would like to be the Krays. They're always romantic, like Jesse James, Bonnie and Clyde. They're all romantic figures, and they were just a romantic figure of the day, you know, like lovely clothes, nice smart suits and ties, always had lovely cars, pretty ladies, nightclubs, sparkly things, you know. It's very easy to fall into the trap of a little bit of hero worship when you're young.
March the 5th, 1969, identical twins, Reginald and Ronald Kray, were sentenced to life imprisonment. They were 35 years old.
I've had since I'm 19. Like I say, when I first got interested with the twins, and I think they are a very good print. There's only, like I say, there's only so many about, and that's one of my masterpieces I've got. I've got a portfolio, what I've had for about 5 or 6 years, and this is one of my prized possessions, and it's got a lot of photos in here, what you never see in books or TV. I've been involved with the twins for 10 years, collecting different stuff, attending different parties, and there's no dull parts about it.
An awful lot of people that are Reggie Kray fans are not villains at all, they're just in love with the myth.
There's very different stuff you can buy, collect, different bits and pieces.
I'll be honest, the authorities are not solely to blame here. Reg courts the press. Had they not kept the myth alive, it would have been out. But in keeping the actual myth alive, it sort of sealed his fate.
No question, all eyes are on this guy, Mr. Reginald Kray. He's a celebrity. And I think, in a funny way, it's this that's seen him through. You know, if you're serving 30-odd years, you've got to have something to sustain you. And if you know that people outside are fascinated by you, if you've had a film made about you, if people have written books about you, you're a somebody. And I think this is at the heart of the whole thing about the Krays. They loved publicity. They wanted to be known as celebrities. As a result, though, he's done his 30 years, he's gone past it, and he's still kept in. But one can see why the Home Secretary and the Parole Board would be reluctant. The way they have become figures, role models for the young and all the rest of it. Of course the publicity and the films and all the other things that they've done have damaged them, I think.
He has become a figurehead for what happens to bad people. But it's totally ludicrous, it doesn't add up, the amount of years that he's got for what he's done. It's almost like they're holding him to ransom for all those that get away, for every villain that has another book out that crosses over into the mainstream. It's almost as if invisibly that's another year on Reg, because they think, oh my God, if this is happening to this guy, what's going to happen if we let Reg out?
Guns, knives, bottles, it was marvellous.
And I think in all honesty, if they did let him out, okay, there would be a frenzy for about 6 months or a year, whatever, until he was completely milked, and then everyone would say, well, it's Reggie Kray, yeah, he's a human being.
I think the authorities are probably very unhappy about the idea of Reg coming out. This whole iconic thing has grown around him, and he's become more and more perceived as a victim as time goes by, that people do see it's unjust and unfair. And so when he comes out, he's going to come out almost as a popular criminal, and that's, I think, for them it is complete anathema. And to suggest that you shouldn't be allowed out because people will want to shower a lot of attention on you means that Reg will never come out of prison if that is their attitude. And that's tragic. I feel very strongly that Reg has just become trapped by this public image. It's almost as though he's been cast in stone. He's a photograph from the 60s, the gangster. And I think for the authorities that's been quite useful.
It's an interesting question as to how we all think of Reg if you haven't seen him, because we have certain assumptions based on the photographs and iconography of films and old pictures and books and so forth, of a slightly nightmarish figure. The reason I was asked to see Reg was A, to look at his current mental state because of concerns about public safety and his health on being released from jail, and B, to have a look at his past history and see what factors might be relevant as to the future as well. Now, of course, he's a retired man. He's in his late 60s. He has, like many people in the late 60s, got one or two problems with vision and hearing, and the difference really is, I suppose, when you talk to him, it's like talking to someone who, in a way, their language and the style in which they speak and address you, you really do feel at times you're talking to someone from 69 as opposed to 99.
Somebody told me that Reggie Kray sends letters out of prison with a photograph as he used to be, not as he is, because he lives in the past. Now, my argument is not that he lives in the past, is that nobody will let him live in the future. Nobody will let him live right now. Now, I don't think society knows Reggie Kray. I think they've been presented with a TV dinner. That's Reggie Kray. There's nothing else to him. They've seen the books, they've seen the films, but they were all made by other people. They know nothing. They assume. And that's what he has to live with on a daily basis. It's where I had to live. And I look along this landing and I think about the hundreds, thousands that have gone behind the door of each cell. And how many people have been really rehabilitated? Not many. There was no rehabilitation for someone like me, as there really is no rehabilitation for somebody like Reggie Kray. Because we don't need it. It's non-existent. It's just a word in prison. We rehabilitate ourselves. We come to the conclusion of who we are and what we are and what's acceptable and what's decent, right and proper. I'd seen the absolute worst of human nature. I mean, I had messed up so many people's lives. Eventually it got to the stage where I couldn't wait to get back to the cell. That was the love affair, and I could shut the door and I could look out the sky. I'd seen nothing of nature for years, but here I could watch the starlings, and it never failed to amaze me about starlings. They could never be satisfied. The mother and father would run off and get them food, bring it back, bring them back, and they forever had an open mouth. I watched robins and sparrows having dust baths, things I didn't know birds did. And I began to open up and I began to look at nature in itself, and I saw that things died and things regenerated. I watched a tree, you know, in the summer, beautiful green, and the flowers came up, and in the autumn the leaves began to drop and they died and they went to nowhere. Where were the things of beauty? But I had to wait for another season for them to come back. And I found that in my own life. As I've lost things, maybe for a short span of time, maybe a long span of time, but they have come back. The beauty has come back. It's about now and the few years that remain. There's always time for turning and getting back something of what you lost.
So right for all these bloody do-gooders saying, oh yeah, but he should come out, he's done 30 years. But Judge Milford Stevenson said, you'll go away for at least 30 years. He didn't say he was going to come out after he'd done 30 years, Reggie Kray or Ronnie Kray, right? Right? And he's still in there, and that's where he should be. He's an animal, and they lock wild animals up, and fuck him.
Why is Reggie Kray still in jail? The answers seem to me to be as follows. 1, no reason at all. It's just the usual inertia, cock up, no one can quite work out how to get him out. 2, he hasn't gone through his proper remorse program. he hasn't said the right things to people and thus isn't psychologically able to get out. 3, he's a risk to the public because he's still perhaps a criminal, possibly got some sort of psychological problems. I can certainly exclude that. 4, that there's a sense in which he is an example of villainy, and thus keeping him behind the bars is a signal and a warning to all potential junior Krays coming out of the system. 5, it's some kind of concern or conspiracy about keeping him there because when he's there he won't say things that he might say outside of jail, i.e. he knows something that the establishment wants to cover up. I don't believe that, but the more they keep him behind bars, unnecessarily in my view, the more people start thinking along those lines.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please join our Facebook group. It's called Krays Crime Lords of London. We're a friendly moderated group with over 1,000 Kray and other celebrated gangster videos available for view. There's also thousands of images in the photos sections. The link for the group is in the YouTube description section. I hope we see you